Toronto, there's got about 200,000 Jews in Toronto. And every year, and this is going back more than 50 years, they have something called Walk with Israel. And it's just what it sounds like. It's a walk. The Jews just walk down. There's this big street in Toronto called Bathurst Street. And along that street for miles, within a few blocks of each side, I think is half the Jewish population in the city. And it really is a Jewish street. There's lots of kosher restaurants and synagogues along there. And it's also, by the way, been a street along which there have been dozens, if not hundreds, of anti-Semitic incidents over the last year. And when I mean incident, I'm just thinking of one of them. And Olivia or Ephraim, maybe you can grab this footage. Literally at the start of where the walk is, Temple Sinai, that was hit again and again with vandalism and a little bit of arson. I don't know if you guys remember when I went to Temple Sinai. That was literally the start of the walk. And then you went 2 blocks over and there's a no-frills grocery store, but there was sort of school bus parking behind it. That was another, a Jewish school bus. The school bus itself is not Jewish, but it's for a Jewish school. Torched, arson. Like literally every block or two along this route has been the site of a crime. I'm not talking about someone using mean words. I'm talking about arson, mischief, vandalism, trespass, assault, and not too far away. Yeah, that's it right there. If you can put that on the main, there's me, and there's the no frills, and there is the school bus absolutely torched.
Jeez.
And, I remember, I heard about that. People say school bus catches fire. I love that. I don't know if you saw that. Yeah, school bus catches fire, CTV. That's what they said. Hey, guys, it just caught fire. Spontaneous combustion. Hey, guys, did anyone tell you that, firefighters were called on the scene on Wilson Avenue? And anyhow, I went down there. So that's Bathurst Street. For 2 or 3 generations, Bathurst Street has been home to a great number of Jews in Toronto. And for the last few years, it's been the home of an enormous number of anti-Semitic crimes. And it's more than bad words to torch the school bus. So the Jews walked that street, and a decade or two ago, every Jew, let's say 50,000 Jews. Yesterday, I understand there were 56,000 Jews. I don't know how they counted. Every politician on every party would go there to see and be seen. It would be, once a year, it's a couple hours, you go, you take your photos there. It's your way of saying to the Jewish community, I want your vote, I want your money.
Yeah.
But the mayor was not there, the premier was not there, the prime minister was not there. I didn't see any liberal cabinet ministers there because that old math has changed.
Yep.
There's still 200,000 Jews in Toronto, which is what there were 10 years ago and 20 years ago. But there's now, 2 million Muslims in Canada, and thankfully not all of them are anti-Semitic, and many of them just want to live their lives. But if you bring over hundreds of thousands of people from Syria, Afghanistan, Somalia, Pakistan, Bangladesh, these are countries that are endemically anti-Semitic, like 95% according to Pew surveys. And many of those places are terrorism hotbeds too. Canada has recently started taking in refugees from Gaza, perhaps the worst decision in the history of immigration. There's a reason why Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, right there in the region, do not take any Palestinians. There's a reason for that, David.
Yep.
So my point is, yesterday was a huge, you can see on the screen right now, an absolutely huge turnout, 56,000 Jews and righteous Gentiles, allies of the Jews. But you see this area here, this is sort of a choke point where on either side of the street, about 100 Hamas activists set up with loudspeakers, and the police protected them, supported them, were their concierge, while they screamed anti-Semitic abuse at the people. And the police actually narrowed the road there. Bathurst Street is 4 lanes. They made it 2 lanes. So the Jews had to go through this choke point, this gauntlet, where on either side, screaming foreigners shouted anti-Semitic craziness. The police had set aside a counter-protest zone for them.
Correct.
But they laugh at the police.
Yep.
The police do their bidding, not the other way around. And the Jews had a permit. Some of these palaces, most of them had their faces covered terrorist style. Some of them were dressed in military style, camouflage. Some of them seemed to have things strapped to their body. I understand someone had a fake grenade, although I didn't see that myself. And the cops just rolled with it. So the cops were there to assist the Hamas protesters by narrowing the path so the Jews had to go through on 2 lanes so they could be properly shouted at. And the cowardly mayor, premier, prime minister, liberal cabinet ministers were all nowhere to be seen. Because I'm not saying they hate the Jews, but they love the votes and the political power of the millions of new migrants that Trudeau and now Mark Carney has brought to Canada, many of whom hate Jews. And so these guys can count. And by the way, the feeling is mutual. One of the only ridings in the Greater Toronto area to flip from Liberal to Conservative was the Jewish neighborhood of York Centre in which this march happened. Yep. And Yaara Sachs, a cabinet minister, was turfed in favor of Roman Baber, a conservative. And so you can sort of understand it. But really, what do the Liberals care? There's tons of votes in Scarborough, in Mississauga. Yeah. So you lose a couple of seats in the Jewish ridings, but you make it up tenfold in the anti-Semitic ridings.
Well, Ezra, to me, I think you're absolutely right. It's, as they say, just business, baby. They've done the math. They know there are 5 times as many Muslims as there are Jewish voters. And I echo what you say, that not every Muslim subscribes to a terrorist agenda. But I think there is a conceit with our politicians about that. I think Olivia Chow, I think the pro-Hamas set is part of her base, as a matter of fact. Doug Ford, this is absolutely disgraceful. More than 7 years ago, I remember him saying about the annual Jew hate fest known as the Al-Quds Day March. Right. Not on his watch. Yeah. Remember that? You're not going to get anywhere near Queen's Park. Well, guess what? Those demonstrators, they come right into Queen's Park. And the numbers are staggering. The Jewish population in Toronto, the Greater Toronto area, less than 4%. But last year, more than 40% of the hate crimes were directed towards Jews. And to your point of bringing in people that don't really share Western values into our dominion, I think this is a scathing indictment, Ezra, that official state multiculturalism, which came into being in 1971 under Justin Trudeau's father, Pierre, it's a disaster. Basically, the unspoken deal was come to Canada from wherever you are. Take advantage of our social programs. Pursue the Canadian dream. What we ask is simply this. Behave. Don't break the law. Don't import age-old hatred into our country. And Ezra, I'm telling you, when I cover these pro-Hamas demonstrations with the Palestinian flags, with the chants for genocide, the display of swastikas, the smoke bombs going off, I don't even think I'm in Toronto, the city of my birth, anymore.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to believe when you've grown up in Toronto the Good, or you've lived here for a long time, but great cities can fall.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not just talking about Rome. I'm talking about Paris. I'm talking about London. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about Malmo, Sweden. I'm talking about Vienna. These are amazing cities that, I mean, Vienna is one of the most astonishingly beautiful cities. It was the seat of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Yeah, that was then, buddy. I mean, demographics is destiny. That is an Islamic town.
Yeah.
And I was in Malmo, Sweden. I spent a day there. Can you dig up that video? I'm not sure who there is there, Olivia or Efron. Can you dig up a video I did 10 years ago now? So I had more hair and it was darker. I went to a city called Malmo, which is just across the water from Copenhagen. And I went to a neighborhood called Rosengard, which was sort of designed as a low-income place for students a generation ago. I saw, other than some security guards, I saw one Swede in my entire day there. And I sort of saw her and I ran up to her. So, who are you? What are you doing here? How? And can you guys find that Malmo video? I don't know if you want to search Malmo or search Sweden, but it was just such an incredible. It was a long form. It was a whole show, probably back in 2015. Anyway, if you guys can find it, I want to show that just to say, you might think, well, Toronto is amazing. Toronto is huge. Toronto has so much inertia. You can't change Toronto. You can't wreck Toronto. Yeah, you can.
Oh, Ezra, I remember in 1987, Peter Ustinov, he said, Toronto is New York as run by the Swiss. Those days are long gone, let me tell you. And it's not just the hatred we see in the streets, it's the graffiti, the litter, the city just seems dirty. The congestion is actually making people move out of Toronto. Yeah, to go like 8 kilometers might take you over an hour at certain times.
Looks like they found me talking to the last Swede in Malmo. Look at how young I look. Oh, who's that cutie pie with all that hair? Yeah, go ahead and play the clip. This is me encountering the last Swedish woman in Malmo. I swear she was the only Swede I saw. And Malmo was a mighty town. Take a look.
You from originally?
Mid Sweden.
One of the things we're talking about is migration to Europe, and Malmo seems to have a lot of migrants, especially Muslim migrants. What do you think of that?
I think maybe they should deal with it better, but still we need them.
For what? What does Sweden need them for?
Because Swedish people don't make any babies.
And
who will take care of us when we are old, if not immigrants?
And how will they take care of you?
Work at, hospitals or, old people homes, stuff like that. Swedish people don't want to clean after other people, so if they don't do it, somebody have to do it.
How about the combination of Muslim culture and Swedish culture? They seem pretty different on things like women's rights and gay rights and things like that.
Hopefully we can turn them around.
And how's that going so far?
I have some colleagues and it's doing fine. No problem at all.
I was talking to some Somali men who tell me that they have a lot of kids, but they're on social assistance, so they're not working.
That's correct.
What it almost, I don't know, and I'm asking you, it seems like some of the migrants are taking social services. They're not going to provide social services to Swedes. Do you think that economics is really going to work out? Like it's costing a lot of money to take care of the migrants, isn't it?
It does, but it's not easy for them to find a job either.
Why do you think they're coming to Sweden? That's very far away. Do you think it's because Sweden is so generous with welfare?
Are you trying to get me to answer your way, or?
You say whatever you want. Tell me if I'm wrong. Am I wrong?
Of course, you read in the magazines all about, the taking our money and works and all that, but it's not easy to get work here. And I think that most of them, if they want to have a job. But if you don't know the language and all that, it's not that easy.
Well, yeah, and especially if you're counting on them to take care of you when you're older, right?
But they will. Because I don't think we will be enough Swedish people to do it.
Can you tell me the best way it's changing Sweden and the worst way it's changing Sweden?
The best way is, I think it's always good to have a mixed culture, How otherwise would we have pizza and pasta in the first place in Sweden? The worst way is probably that the politicians doesn't do it well. They should have been, provided them better.
Now, when I'm from Canada and we think of Sweden, we think of a beautiful, progressive country, and we think of women's rights. But I understand that the number of rapes in Sweden is extremely high. Is that true?
Not what I heard. It's not more than before. During the summer, you can have drunk Swedish men as well to do stupid things.
And how about crime in general? Is that a problem?
I don't know. Maybe I'm lucky, but I'm fine.
I want to ask you a question. Are you afraid of being called racist if you criticize migrants? Are you afraid of that?
No, because I'm probably not that aggressive when I criticize, but of course can happen. But I always tell what I want to say, and so far no problems.
Have you followed the news out of Germany on New Year's Eve in Cologne?
Yeah, a little bit.
What do you think of that?
It's not nice, but still, I think it's still the politicians. They don't do it well. I mean, the police does what they're told, and so I think still, politicians. I mean, if they inform people better, I don't think we would have that problems.
So you think that that rape and sexual assault, it's just Sweden and Germany has to do a better job?
Yeah, because I mean, if you give them good values in school and whatever, I think it would have been better. And still, it's easy to blow up because it happens with immigrants, but it happens in other cultures as well.
How do you feel when you see a woman wearing a niqab, like just the little slit for the eyes? I mean, you're a modern Swedish woman. How do you feel when you see another woman wearing that?
As long as it's by free choice, I have no problem with it.
And how would you know if it's by free choice?
I have no clue.
Does it bother you? Do you have any children yourself? Would you want your daughter to dress like
I don't have any children, but a lot of friends have children. And let's say if I would have a friend with a daughter and she wants to convert and she truly believes it, I will be fine with it. But if somebody forced her, I wouldn't be fine.
Do you feel like we're losing ground on gay rights and women's rights?
Hopefully not. I have a lot of gay friends, and they have the same problems that they had before. I think it's better now.
I think the world is better now in the West, but I've talked to a number of Somali men here and Macedonian Muslim men. They don't like gays at all.
No, but they don't do an extreme about it. I mean, look at Russia. I think it's worse there because the regime is against it. Here it's people. So I think it's a big difference.
Is there a limit to the number of Muslim migrants Sweden can take?
No.
So
I mean, it doesn't
a million a year?
I don't think.
Like that's what Germany's
I
taking.
don't think it will happen. Not 1 million per year.
What happens if there were more Muslim migrants than there are Swedes? Is that okay?
As long as they follow the law and try to do the best and work hard, why not?
So you have no problem with Swedes being a minority in Sweden?
No.
I
Actually not. As long as it's a good country and you find work and the nature is still beautiful and the weather is like it is and
you don't have any kids anyways, right? That's someone else's problem.
No, it's not anyone else's problem. As long as people are nice to each other, it doesn't matter where you live.
I mean, if there were 10 million Somalis here and then they brought in Somali-style law, it wouldn't be Sweden anymore if they brought in Sharia law.
No, I still don't think it will happen. I'm quite sure.
You've been very generous with your time. Thank you very much.
I recorded that 10 years ago. You can tell because I'm 10 years handsomer now. But I haven't forgot a word she said. Mm-hmm. And Malmo was, just a generation ago, it was a leading industrial city in Sweden. And more than that, it was Swedish. It was like 95% Swedish. Yeah. And now Rosengard, I tell you again, that was the only white woman I saw all day. So I ran up to her. Like, I'm not going to show more vids from my trip to Malmo, but there were people born and raised in Malmo who are for Sharia law, for banning booze, banning gays, banning women from being uncovered. They were born in Sweden now. And what happens when... Yeah, and so what's happening in Malmo, why couldn't it happen in Toronto? Is there something special about Toronto? You know, you don't need to be sacked like Constantinople was. You can open the gates to the city. You don't have to burst through the gates if you're willing to open them voluntarily. That's Toronto's future if we continue with mass immigration.
You know, Ezra, that was a fascinating interview. You asked all the right questions and all the important questions. And what I thought was astounding with so many of her answers was this Pollyanna approach. Everything's going to be okay if my daughter wanted to convert to Islam and have to wear niqab or burqa. As long as she wanted to, that's okay. And no limits on immigration from people from perhaps countries that are culturally incompatible. And, you know, it reminded me of the most astonishing flag I saw on display at Walk with Israel yesterday, Ezra, where the pro-Hamas were demonstrating. They had all kinds of flags. The vast majority were Palestinian flags. Only one Canadian flag. There was a fellow wearing a Canadian flag as a cape. But somebody was displaying the rainbow pride flag.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
And I thought, this is astonishing. It's like, it's the old saying, it's almost like chickens for KFC. And again, if that person, assuming they're part of that community, if they went to Gaza and were openly gay or lesbian or bi or trans, whatever the descriptor is, you know how that ends, Ezra. You're brought up to the top of a rooftop and you're thrown to your death. That is the preferred method of execution. Let's face it, Canada's economy isn't heading in the right direction. Inflation's eating away your savings, and government debt is out of control. No politician is going to fix that overnight. With Guildhall Wealth, you can hold real physical gold and silver inside your RRSP. It's a time-tested way to protect your retirement and take back control of your wealth. Call 1-877-8-SILVER or visit guildhallwealth.com/rebel to request your free investor kit. And hey, make sure to mention Rebel News.